Once upon a time, in a land far away, there is a mystical place called Shondaland, home to Grey's Anatomy and Scandal. The world changed forever when another show from this mystical land aired its pilot episode on September 25th, 2014. How to Get Away with Murder. The pilot episode can make or break the viewer, with some of the best television pilots becoming the blueprint for a generation. In creating a series pilot, newcomers welcome, a pilot script must accomplish far more than the typical spec episode script. In the same time that you are given to tell an episode story, you also have to introduce fresh characters in a new setting, establish the show's time frame, narrative style, themes, and dramatic structure, tell a compelling story, and show proof that the series has legs. So the book later details how there's two types of pilots, the premise pilot and the typical episode pilot. How to Get Away with Murder falls under the premise pilot by having the episode center around an event or situation. How to Get Away with Murder sets up a hook that draws the viewers. The central tagline in the promos are "Who Killed Sam?", while also familiarizing the audience with the central characters that are flawed in nature, brought together by their law professor Annalise Keating. The episode follows the less is more formula with leaving questions in the audience's mind, while giving us small tidbits. The structure of the pilot uses flash forward that isn't a stranger to pilots, as it was used in How I Met Your Mother and Lost. Now, this format definitely became less entertaining as the show went on, but that doesn't stop the pilot from being a delight to watch. Let's look at the Murderous series premiere. The pilot is the only episode that's not named after a quote from a character, as every How to Get Away with Murder episode is, like Season 1, Episode 3, Smile or Go to Jail, said by Connor, and Season 1, Episode 5, We Are Not Friends, said by Laurel. In an interview the cast gave at the Television Critics Association Summer Press Tour in July 2014, the cast was talking about filming the pilot a year ago. The interview talks about details from Season 1 in general, but I'm going to focus on their experience filming the pilot. So this interview consists of Jack Falahy, who plays Connor, Asia Naomi King, who plays Michaela, Matt McGorry, who plays Asher, Carla Souza, who plays Laurel, and Alfred Enoch, who plays Wes. Did you guys have an instant rapport as a cast? Carla: yeah. Jack: I had some buddies that are from Philly, so I became the impromptu tour guide, even though I had been to Philadelphia once when I was 11. I got this really long list of things to do, so I was like, we're going to this bar, then to dinner here, then dancing out here, and there's an after party place here. Everyone was like, all right, but I was a total stranger and took us to kind of not a great side of Philly, so it could have been weird. Carla: but it was great, and we got to see everybody's dance moves the first night. Alfred: and then the rest of the week. Carla: it was crazy. And then we had, again, because of Matt's fandom and famousness, free Ben & Jerry's. Oh my god, that was amazing. Asia: yes. Why did this happen? He tweeted about Ben & Jerry's, so they sent ice cream over. The other day, I was going through my hard drive and I found all of these photos of us having the ice cream party in my hotel room. I removed them from my phone because I don't want that shit to leak because I look like a crazy homeless guy. I'm like in the hotel robe and I don't think wearing pants and I have this big oversized shirt and a winter hat and I'm like eating ice cream. It's awful. So you guys had a slumber party the first night? Honestly, every night. Matt: literally, we had all these ice cream parties at like 2 a.m. and we tweet about it and they'd send us all this ice cream with my Twitter handle written on it. But literally the first night, like Jack passed out on my bed. Alfie and I passed out on my floor. We ordered room service. It was just a hilarious good time. Someone hadn't arrived yet. I hadn't arrived yet. Carla got there last, but I went and found her. It was like 11:30 at night. I'm unpacking my bags. I'm organizing my things, and I get this text saying you guys were leaving the bar. So I just figured I'd see you the next day. And then Asia texted, "What room are you in?" So I just told her, and literally a second later, It's because I was already like going up and down in the elevator just waiting to get her room number. That's insane. That's actually insane. You were just on the elevator? Yeah, just riding up and down. That's how I got there so fast. And then I peeked through the peephole and saw her dancing on her own in the hallway, and I was like, what's going on? So I opened the door and she goes, hi. That's actually a really good impression. And she immediately was like, you want to see pictures of my wedding dress? Yes, so we sat down. I could see remains of wine on her mouth, so you read the situation pretty quickly. Yeah, I was like, this is gonna be fun. It was so much fun. It was really great, like going on vacation and having everyone together. We did that occasionally on Harry Potter, and then they stopped doing it because they couldn't let 40 kids run wild in a hotel somewhere in England. It was chaos. And they're giving you money. That's the dumbest idea I've ever heard. It was no surprise when they stopped doing it. But it was like that for us in Philly. We were all working away during the week, and then our weekends, which, because we had to shoot in courtrooms on Saturday and Sunday, were Thursday and Friday. So we were always looking for the fun nights in Philly on Thursdays. I'm kind of impressed you guys were able to actually get it together to film this pilot. I think that's sort of a testament to how smart Shonda is with creating a cast. She brought us there a week early. She was like, these guys are going to fuck about for a week, get to know each other, and then we'll get down to work. Which we did. The cast really bonded after filming the pilot episode, and the chemistry they were able to bring made the relationships what they were on screen, which makes sense if they did commit murder together. The episode begins at the bonfire. 4 unknown characters are arguing about trying to bury a body. Immediately, we the audience are wondering, how did these characters get to burying a body? They're going back and forth, stressed about the situation, with one character yelling, "Shut up." The character, who we later learn is our protagonist Wes, says how they need to flip a coin, as 2 want to handle the body themselves, and the other 2 want to leave it where it is. Wes and Laurel versus Michaela and Connor. The coin flip is heads to bury the body, tails leave it where it is, and it transitions to the past, 3 months earlier. Wes is shown riding his bicycle to class at Middleton Law School, passing a bunch of signs for a girl, Lila Sandgard, that's missing. We gradually meet the other 3 characters we saw earlier. Michaela Pratt is first, as Wes sits next to her when he comes to class. She flashes her ring, saying she's engaged when he's rambling nervously. Notice how Michaela does not even make eye contact with him. Connor's next, with his first line being, "Nice try, player," to Wes, saying he doesn't want to be a sitting duck when the shooter gets there. The class begins with Annalise Keating, played by the incredibly talented Viola Davis, saying, "I don't know what terrible things you've done in your life up until this point. You know the rest."
How to get away with murder.
The introduction of Annalise quickens the pace of the episode, as Annalise wants them to know how to apply what they learn in a courtroom setting. She begins asking questions about the aspirin assassin. The camera goes to Wes, looking confused among everyone else. The show quickens through its dialogue and fast camera work. Connor and Asher are called on in some capacity, Connor by name and Asher being called you. The third question has students raising their hand, but Michaela volunteers to answer the question, closing with introducing herself. When Wes is called on, he doesn't know the answer. Annalise displays empathy when she clarifies actus rea and mens rea, and he's still lost. He reveals he only got in 2 days ago. Laurel interrupts and answers for him. Annalise Keating gets up and asks her name, Laurel Castillo, and scolds her for taking a learning opportunity from another student. This scene represents what we know of the Keating Five. The only students said by name by Annalise Keating are Connor Walsh and Wes Gibbons. This leads me to believe that those 2 are the students she seems to like the most, I say loosely, which does seem to be supported throughout the season. They go into explaining the aspirin assassin, revealing she took on this case a week ago about a secretary, Gina, who's accused of attempting to murder her former boss/lover, Arthur. We are then introduced to Bonnie and Frank, her associates, and the challenge with having to present the best defense in 1 minute. This introduces the idea that law is a game. Like, yes, there's a winner and a loser, but it's the idea that gambling with people's lives is entertaining. The episode introduces the immunity idol, a prize given to the best defense for the client. It cuts to the trophy being in Wes's hand for a quick second when they're burying the body. When Wes is studying, he meets Rebecca as he confronts her about the music being too loud. After this moment, it cuts back to them rolling up a body in a rug. She ends up being the one that gives an explanation to the cops of why they're carrying a rug, calm and collected, which contrasted how she was acting earlier. Now, it gets into the student's defense. Asher stands out as his is pretty dramatic and cuts to Wes scratching ideas off the paper, as he's going last and can't repeat what anyone else has said. Wes ends up claiming self-defense and no one takes him seriously. Somehow, he makes it to the next round. Annalise teaches the steps of getting away with murder. First, you discredit the witness. Next, you bring up a new suspect. Then you bury the evidence. And finally, you overwhelm the jury. Michaela is running to the courtroom late, but she whispers information to Frank, then Annalise. There is a lot of connection between Michaela and Connor up to this point, being pretty similar, an obvious duo, which we also see with them being on the same side in the flash forward. She whispers that he could learn something when he asks about it. She describes a witness by figuring out her colorblindness and really resonates how Michaela Pratt is the most ambitious. The work she did with stalking Facebook photos to figuring this out had her following the first step of what Annalise taught in class, which parallels how Michaela looks up to Annalise in a way that's idolization. Wes has an idea and goes to Annalise's house and catches Annalise with another man, which he later learns isn't her husband. Her response wasn't even upset, just went to call and yell at Frank for not locking up. She then calls him Seth as she vetoes his idea. Her not even calling him by his name was definitely done on purpose to maybe diminish the power Wes has on the situation. Connor is singing Jingle Bells in the flash forward to Michaela, and he makes it sound haunting with the last part.
We can just kill the store owner if we need to, right? Hey, jingle bells, jingle jingle all the way. Oh, what fun to kill someone and end up in jail.
Connor meets Oliver, a worker for the agency, at a bar and gets information out of him. He uses unusual methods to get the email. Sex. When Michaela asks, he says he doesn't kiss and tell, and Michaela immediately asks what that means. In my head, this represents that Michaela would not even think of doing anything illegal as she follows the rules. Again, Connor used ways that were immoral, and Annalise seemed more impressed with what he did than what Michaela did. At the dinner party, Wes realizes who Annalise's husband is. The eye contact and camera work is kind of chilling, alternating between Wes and Annalise as they drink after the toast. It cuts back to them carrying the body wrapped in a rug. Laurel gets a phone call from Frank that almost blows their cover. Back in the past, Laurel realizes that the mistress, Gina, and Arthur's wife, Angus, knew each other and maybe possibly teamed up to kill Arthur. She tells Frank about her concerns and he doesn't do anything because Frank already knew.
Listed girls who come to law school to help the less fortunate, only to take a corporate job after graduation, which they then quit the second they get pregnant because they'd rather stay home. For the child, of course.
You're a misogynistic ass.
After this convo, Bonnie says, "Stop screwing the students," which is foreshadowing their eventual relationship. In addition, it's early evidence of Annalise defending a murderer and being okay with it, questioning her morals. It goes back to the dinner party with Annalise and Wes. Annalise cries in front of Wes, saying how they've been trying for a baby and the pressure on their marriage. You can tell Wes feels uncomfortable with the exchange, especially with all these emotions and sadness in contrast to when she was caught that night. After he leaves, Annalise looks in the mirror, not that what she said wasn't true, but just that it was more complicated, and questions how genuine these feelings were. Wes is trying to be friends with Rebecca and asks about drinking with her, but she declines after giving him wine. It seems that this relationship will definitely be explored later on in the season, as the two of them are kind of opposites attract, and Wes seems curious about his neighbor to this point. Later on in the case, she finds out her client bought aspirin, is pissed, and screams at her. Because of this, it makes her look guilty. Annalise yells at Frank again for not grilling and preparing Gina. She says she will fix this and calls Nate on the stand. Nate's Annalise's boyfriend. We learn that he has a wife with cancer, and Annalise asks if he's heard of doctored videos. Annalise made her boyfriend look bad and did not feel much remorse for doing so. Nate put his job on the line and she didn't care. Is this possibly hinting at Nate's job being in jeopardy later? One can only find out. It cuts to Wes and you could tell he's shocked that she would talk to someone she likes like that. These moments are meant to add complexity to Annalise because one minute she's crying and the next she's cold, which is portrayed so well because of Viola Davis. The case ends with Annalise getting her client acquitted and Laurel feeling bad because of the possibility of knowing information that could have affected the outcome. So the fact is that someone possibly did get away with murder. Also, looking back, Laurel was the moral, good character, and working for Annalise is definitely going to affect what she deems is right and wrong. In this moment, Michaela says, "I want to be her." Walsh gets top of the class and the prize, which is setting a dangerous precedent. That attaining information illegally could earn you Annalise's praise, as there's no consequences if you win the case, right? Annalise announces her 5 that join the firm. Asher celebrates visibly, who has had a small role in the episode up to this point. So what could he possibly do? Michaela's response is thank God, Laurel sits straighter, and Wes looks confused. Wes believes he doesn't deserve it and feels he got it because of him knowing about the affair, and Annalise says no. Through this episode, we understand why the first 4 made it. Michaela and Connor's work on the case, Asher's probably because of his connections that were mentioned earlier in the episode with working under Chief Justice Roberts, and Laurel for her notice of details, and maybe her trying to have morals do the right thing when practicing law. Wes does not make as much sense because he didn't really do anything to help. What potential does Annalise see in him if it isn't because he knows her secret? The episode ends with a maintenance worker coming to the water tower and finding a body in the sorority house. Griffin, who we saw earlier on TV, Lila's boyfriend, goes to Rebecca's place and he looks very stressed. Sam is shown to be watching the news as he was her professor. "I bet you the boyfriend did it," says Annalise, and their eyes meet. Sam says, "Guess we'll see," and Annalise is looking kind of towards the camera, and Sam in the opposite direction. Which is funny, because we later find out in the season that he was sleeping with Lila, so it was the boyfriend.
Why is your penis on a dead girl's phone?
The ending of the episode leaves the audience back in the flash forward, with the students burning the body. The camera shows the dead body is Sam Keating, the husband, which they make sure to remind the audience of in case we forgot. So not only are we trying to figure out what happened to Lila, we're also working towards why/how Sam dies. Who would want Annalise's husband dead? One important detail to notice was how the show transitions to the flash forward. The first one ends with Wes flipping a coin, cutting to Wes riding his bike. The second one is Michaela peacefully talking to the police officer, then cuts to her giving her defense of blaming the wife. The third flash forward is Connor singing Jingle Bells and cuts to him at the bar talking to Oliver, and the fourth one is Frank calling Laurel and cuts to her talking to Frank. Each of the flash forwards center around the main 4 law students. The duos of Michaela and Connor and Wes and Laurel seem to be important to notice, especially Wes and Laurel being quieter and Michaela and Connor being the ones that thrive off attention. These 2 duos become more attached as the season goes on and does make for some interesting dynamics post-season 1. So I had the chance to look at the original script, and here are some of the details I noticed. The major name changes of Patrick, who eventually became Connor, and the fact that Asher is called Doucheface throughout the script. The bonfire is different, with the show having Connor talk first, while Michaela does in the script mentioning her fiancé, Aiden. They maybe took this part out because they planned on Aiden having a bigger part, but they eventually break up in the season. Asher has more lines in the original pilot script, which is fun because it just makes him look terrible, while in the pilot, he's just there. I think having Asher say less was great because we're more curious about him, almost forgetting he's there. But don't worry, we'll remember him by the time the season ends. The same can be said about Frank and Bonnie, who have additional dialogue in the pilot. Again, I think the episode worked best trying to develop the main 4 plus Annalise. Especially when we think about how the pilot episodes don't want to give too much away, but just enough for us to tune in. They used the show not tell element more in the pilot than in the script, as one scene they cut out was the evaluation of the students, with seeing them select on screen, while we find out in the show along with the characters. The last thing that stuck out to me in the script was when Michaela says she wants to be like Annalise Keating. In the script, Connor verbally agrees with her while Laurel says no. This scene is a bit different in the show, with Connor slightly nodding and Laurel's expression seeming disappointed, and she knows that Gina possibly helped kill Arthur. A great example of using their expressions to portray how they feel and not words. Well, that's my rough, hopefully coherent analysis on the monumental pilot of How to Get Away with Murder. I loved the pilot episode of How to Get Away with Murder because not only is the first season a work of art, but because it really becomes stronger on rewatches. And I guess to close this video out about how powerful this season was, I can't forget about how this role was historic in more ways than one.
Viola Davis, How to Get Away with Murder.
This is the first Emmy win and nomination for Viola Davis.